Hey everyone, welcome to the newest episode of the Geek Report for the weeks of June 29th through July 14th, 2026. In this week's episode, we will be looking at news in the worlds of anime and gaming. Stay tuned to the end for a special announcement concerning the channel.
Hey everyone, hope everyone's doing good. Hope you all are doing happy, doing blessed, doing safe, and doing well. Welcome to your Geek Report for the weeks of June the 29th through July 13th of 2026. We've got a few news items to talk about, so let's get started. So first off, nothing really happened in the movie and TV industry these past 2 weeks. So we're going to jump straight into the anime world. And we've got two big news items to talk about in the anime world. First off, one of the best Star Wars Visions episodes concerning the Ninth Jedi is getting its own series. And it's called Star Wars Visions The Ninth Jedi. We finally got a trailer for it. It's going to be dropping in August. And we're going to take a look at the trailer. And I'll give you some of my overall thoughts and opinions on it. Also, these past 2 weeks, we got a new trailer for Rising of the Shield Hero Season 5. This is the first trailer for Season 5, and we're going to take a look at it, and I'm going to try and see what I can see in it. And then we transition into our gaming segment. And there's really only one story to talk about in these 2 weeks. And that is the fact that PlayStation is ending physical media for the PlayStation console beginning in January of 2028. I'm going to talk about why this is such a bad idea, why I don't like it, and overall what I think of the whole concept of it to begin with. And then finally, I want to make a special announcement concerning the Geek Report. So sit back, relax, grab yourself something to drink, grab yourself something to eat, and let's look at the Geek Report for the weeks of June the 29th through July 13th of 2026.
So let's take a look at the anime news that piqued my interest these past 2 weeks.
Now, starting off this week's Geek Report, we're going to jump directly into our anime news segment. For the simple fact that there really wasn't anything in movies or TV that kind of piqued my interest this week. So, I want to jump directly into the anime news segment because there were two stories that really did catch my attention. And the first one is one that I'm very happy for. And it comes from the world of Star Wars. Now, Star Wars has done animation before, but not until Star Wars Visions did they do anime. And basically, Star Wars Visions was where Lucasfilm got the biggest anime studios together and basically told them, do whatever story you want in the Star Wars universe. These were not based on canon. These were just simple stories that these studios came up with. Season 1 was incredible. Season 2 was pretty decent. And Season 3 was also incredible. Some of the standouts in Season 1, though, was The Duel, which was the very first episode, which I absolutely loved. Lope and El Chaco, which really had a family dynamic mixed in with culture and tradition. And finally, The Ninth Jedi, which is now getting its own series, which I'm very happy for. I absolutely love The Ninth Jedi. It takes place in the far future when the legends of Skywalker and Vader, the Sith, and the Jedi have kind of faded away. Okay? So, I'm very excited to see this. I'm extremely excited to see this. Because I think that this is only just the beginning of what could become a Star Wars Visions universe. Okay? Because they're calling it Star Wars Visions Presents The Ninth Jedi. And it's not that far off either. It comes out on August the 5th. So, this is the first trailer for it. So, let's take a look at this trailer, and I'll give you some of my own thoughts and opinions on what we're seeing here. But this here is the upcoming trailer from Star Wars Visions, the series, The Ninth Jedi.
The Jedi and the Sith have disappeared. A terrible age of conflict now mires the galaxy.
Now, that's really important right there. Because, you know, whether you're talking about the sequel trilogy, whether you're talking about the prequel trilogy, there's always been the legend of the Jedi and the Sith, of these people with incredible gifts. Okay. But now we're talking about a universe where those legends have faded away, where they're nothing but legends now. And maybe only a small few of believers remember those legends of the Jedi, of the Sith. So I think that this right here is a very good starting place. Now, we saw this in the episodes over on Star Wars Visions of the Ninth Jedi, where they're in this universe and basically they're trying to rebuild the Jedi Order. While at the same time, you've got dark forces wanting to rebuild the Sith. Okay? But this whole universe knows nothing of them, knows nothing of the Jedi, knows nothing of the Sith, maybe even knows nothing of the Force. So, seeing this universe without the Jedi, without the Sith, it's going to be very interesting.
And chaos.
Now, this here is the main character that we want to talk about. This here is La Cara. In Star Wars Visions, the Ninth Jedi, we saw her origin story. She was the daughter of the last person in the known universe who could make lightsabers. He would harvest kyber crystals, and he was making several lightsabers for someone who had the intent of rebuilding the Jedi Order. In the process of all this, her father is kidnapped, and she has to deliver the lightsabers herself, and it turns into the fact that she becomes a Jedi. That she starts on her road to being a Jedi. Then we skip forward a little bit to an episode in Star Wars Visions Season 3. The Ninth Jedi, the Child of Hope. She gets lost during a space battle by Jedi hunters. And she finds herself on this abandoned ship, whatever. And in the process, not only does she come to terms with what she is now, that she is a part of this grand galactic battle between good and evil, but she comes to the fact that she has to find her father. Now, in her origin story, she already was looking for her father, but it was for personal reasons. Now, not only is it for personal reasons, it's so that other Jedi throughout the universe could get lightsabers, because her father was the last man in the entire known universe who could make sabers. And not only that, in Child of Hope, she realizes the responsibility now weighed upon her in being a Jedi. So I'm hoping we see more of that. That she really does come to terms with the consequences and the benefits of what she is now embarking on.
We are searching for allies who will stand up with us for the sake of the galaxy. We need Jedi to fight alongside us.
Are you a Jedi?
Now, something I noticed is that throughout this scene, it looks like she has grown in her combat power, but there's a risk there. Being a Jedi does not mean just being a combatant. Okay, because that's the same mistake that the Jedi fell into with the Clone Wars. That they were forced or drug into the Clone Wars to be generals. Okay, and that instead of realizing what the Force wanted from them, they became nothing more than glorified soldiers. And that's a risk there, because eventually when you're stained by war, it darkens your soul a little bit. Okay. So I'm wondering if we ain't going to be seeing that with La Cara, where she is fighting and she's not really learning about the Force, whether it be the cosmic force or whatever they call it in this universe. She's not really learning about the Force. She's not being led by the Force. The Force is what leads a Jedi. Okay, it's what sets him on his path. Okay, it controls his actions but doesn't bind his actions. She ain't learning about that. All she's probably learning is how to use her lightsaber to defend herself. Okay, and that is the same hole that the Jedi from the Clone Wars fell into. That whether through outside forces or through their own arrogance, they became generals and they focused entirely on fighting and combat and all that stuff instead of going out and learning more about the Force. Instead of experiencing the Force and what it wants from them, not just the combat and the fighting and the piloting starfighters and whatnot. That's what led to their downfall in the prequel trilogy.
My name is Nawam. I will bring order to the chaos that surrounds us.
He must be stopped. They're using the...
Okay, I want to go back to the studios because Ghost in the Shell, Psychopaths are fundamental anime. Now, I'm not sure which Ghost in the Shell it is that they're talking about, but if it's Ghost in the Shell, it's an incredible anime. Okay, and all their anime always talk about something deeper within the story. Something deeper with the characters. And I think that's what we're going to experience here in this.
He must be stopped. They're using the Kyber crystals to make a weapon?
Now, okay, we've seen this before. Okay, in the sequel trilogy, they did the same thing. Okay, they used Kyber crystals. Well, actually, if you think about it, they did the same thing in the original trilogy too. Because we later learned that the Death Star was, well, its lasers were powered by Kyber crystals. But in the sequel trilogy, Starkiller Base, its weapons were powered by Kyber crystals and the sun. I don't know how I feel about that. Okay. I mean, it's kind of like going over territory we've already been over before. Okay. You know, I wish they would have done something else, like maybe the Sun Crusher or some other type of weapon that could have been modified for the era that we're now in when it talks about the Ninth Jedi. But yeah, like going back to the whole making Kyber crystals into a doomsday weapon. We've been down that road before. Sometimes it succeeded, sometimes it didn't. So I don't know how I really feel about that.
Fire.
And that's really important. August 5th. Because that's just a little under a month away. Okay. So, you know, I really did not expect this to come out this year. So not only did we have X-Men 97 Season 2 come out, which is now currently playing, but we're now getting Star Wars Visions Presents The Ninth Jedi.
I won't allow you to conquer the galaxy.
This mission will be dangerous.
Things are about to get a little bumpy.
This is a lightsaber forged by Lord Zima. It reflects the user's heart.
It's blue. Is Nawam a Jedi?
The Jedi fight in the name of justice.
Does the Force actually guide you?
Now, see, that's what I was talking about right there. The Force is what guides a Jedi. What she said, we fight in the name of justice. That ain't all the Jedi do. The Jedi explore the fundamentals of the Force and lets them guide their actions, guide their choices. Okay? And that was the same hole that the Jedi Order fell into during the Clone Wars, where through either external forces, internal forces, whatever you want to call it, they were dragged into a war where they no longer listened to the Force. They basically fought and eventually were almost all wiped out because they could not see the darkness coming, because they stopped listening to the Force because of arrogance. And now I think we're seeing kind of a repeat of history here, where she thinks that she was fighting for the Force. She thinks that's what being a Jedi is all about, when really being a Jedi is listening to the Force and allowing it to not control your actions, but guide your actions, guide the direction you go in, guide how you perceive threats and how you should handle threats. You don't just fight. You are an ambassador of peace and justice. And that does not mean just fighting. Sometimes that means diplomacy. Now, of course, there are times where you have to fight. The one thing that should be the fundamental core of the Jedi is the fact that the Force guides them. Okay, that should be the fundamental fact of any Jedi.
How many people have you killed for the sake of justice?
Now, I think this scene right here is really important, okay? Because I think what we're seeing here is her in kind of like a dark forest cave. If you've never seen Empire Strikes Back, or if you've never seen The Last Jedi, Empire Strikes Back does it better, in my opinion. There's a scene where Luke goes into a dark forest cave and he fights Lord Vader. But when the mask explodes, it's his face that's inside the mask. I think that's what we're seeing here. Is Lar Kara is having a vision where all the killing, all the fighting she has done has not been led by the Force. And she's becoming a Sith. Instead of having the Force as an ally, she's using it like she commands the Force. And she's becoming more and more Sith. And she is seeing this vision. I don't think she's going to become a Sith in this series. I don't think her lightsaber is going to become red in this series. But I think she's going to have this vision of becoming a Sith, like Luke had when he was in the Dark Force cave. And that right there, the return of the Darksaber. So that begs the question, are we going to see Mandalorians in this series? Because that looks like a Darksaber right there. So that begs the question is, if I can get... Is he a Mandalorian? Of Mandalorian descent? It would be something if he was like a descendant of Bo-Katan. It would be something if he was a descendant of Bo-Katan. And in the future, and I know this is not canon, okay? They have flat out said, this is not canon, okay? But in this version of Star Wars, he could be a descendant of Bo-Katan. Okay? So that would make him both Mandalorian and Jedi, which I think would be something really cool to experience. So that was the first trailer for The Ninth Jedi. It comes from Star Wars Visions. It will start streaming on August the 5th. Let me say, I liked what I saw. The only thing that really kind of gives me pause is the whole idea of them using kyber crystals to create another doomsday weapon. We have been down this road before, and it just seems like they could have done something else. I mean, if you look at all the Star Wars books out there, you have the Sun Crusher, you have so many other weapons of mass destruction you could have drawn upon. But instead, you drew upon something that has been tried not once, but twice. Maybe even more than that if you count the Death Star weapons that have probably emerged from the Death Star. Okay? So, yeah, I wish they would have gone with some type of other super weapon. But besides that, I absolutely love this. Okay? It is so good. And just the idea of what we saw in the trailer. And I'm specifically talking about this right here, where she looks and her lightsaber has gone from green to red. And I don't think that's what's going to happen here. Okay. I truly believe that what she's experiencing is a force vision similar to what Luke experienced on the cave in Dagobah. That all she's done since taking on the role of being a Jedi is fight and survive and all that. Okay, that she's not really let the Force guide her. And that's one of the fundamental things a Jedi does. It lets the Force guide their actions, not control, but guide their actions. And a Jedi does not try to control the Force, nor does the Force try to control the Jedi. It's a partnership. Whereas in the Sith believe that you can control the Force. You know, that's why they say that the Force is my ally, which means I don't control it and it don't control me. Whereas the Sith say that the Force, I control the Force. That the Force is my powerful weapon. That's their belief system about the Force. That they control the Force, and because they are able to tap into this cosmic power, that this makes them better than everyone else. That this should make them rulers of the universe. Okay? And through hate, anger, and fear, that's where they came from. And I think what we're seeing here is Larkara having a Force vision where all the killing, all the death, all the survival, all the combat is coming back, and she's having a Force vision where she's looking at herself through a mirror darkly and seeing that she is more Sith than Jedi. Where she is seeing that this is what she could become, a Sith, if she lets the darkness overwhelm her instead of facing it and letting it go, and letting the Force guide her actions instead of events and the universe guide her actions. But still, I liked this trailer. I can't wait to see what happens when it starts streaming on August the 5th. And I really do hope that it does open up the door for other Star Wars Visions Presents shows. Okay? I think Star Wars Visions really opened the door for these anime studios to come in and show everyone what they got. Okay? And I do believe that this is probably just a first.
So let's take a look at the anime news that piqued my interest these past 2 weeks.
Now, our final anime news story is honestly a surprise for me. Because I wasn't expecting a trailer at all this year. But one of the anime that kind of caught me by surprise was Rising of the Shield Hero. Okay. And it started off with a bang, dude. I mean, not to really spoil everything, you've got a guy who's drawn into this world, and he is one of the 4 cardinal heroes. You have the spear hero, the sword hero, the bow hero, and the shield hero. And on the very first night that he is in this new world, he is accused of a heinous crime. He's basically ostracized and sent out into the world alone to do whatever he needs to survive. Eventually, he gets allies. And eventually, he is cleared. But that still doesn't stop the problems for him. He still has to fight these enormous monsters that are coming. He still has to protect the people he has grown to care about. And, I mean, it's just a never-ending thing with him. And we've gone through 4 episodes of the anime Rising of the Shield Hero. Well, now we got a trailer for Season 5. And they're saying it's coming in 2027. Okay, I can kind of live with that because I don't want anime rushed. That's one of the big problems with TVs and stuff is they rush things. And I don't want anime rushed because honestly, if I'm just going to be flat out honest with you, it has come to the point where I would rather watch anime than some of the newer programming that you can get on NBC or ABC or stuff. Because anime is a lot more exciting. Anime deals with stuff that Western TV is scared to deal with, honestly. And honestly, it's better. It's just better. Which is really sad. Okay? But let's check out Rising of the Shield Hero Season 5. The trailer. This is the first trailer. And I'll give you some of my thoughts and opinions on it. Okay, so this is in Japanese, so let me kind of pull up the English subtitles here.
盾の勇者としてこの世界へ召喚された。最初はこんな世界どうなってもいいと思っていた。だが共に戦い守る。
And that right there is what I was talking about. At the very beginning, when he was accused of this heinous crime, no one wanted to deal with him. Okay? Even though he was one of these great cardinal heroes, everyone assumed that he had done this heinous crime. Okay? And if you want to find out what this crime was, just watch the series. But eventually he got allies who saw that he was not this heinous monster that everyone was putting him out to be. That if anything, the people who were spreading these lies were basically liars. That they were basically just trying to destroy him for no good reason. And now, after all that happened, not including all the other fights that he has gone through, he has learned to not only love this world, but grown accustomed to it because he has friends and allies and possible loves that he has in this world.
戦い守るべき仲間たちができた。こいつらがこれからも生きていく場所を俺は守る。だから俺たちはここへ来たんだ。ここが法王の封印されている地、法王国か。俺たちは法王、司令を倒すってことでいいんだな。世界人口の3分の2を犠牲にして波を止めるんじゃなく、司令を倒してまた最悪の波に対処することが死生勇者の共通見解。それでいいんだな。ああ、
もちろんです。
俺はお父さんにどこまでもついていくだけですぞ。分かった。やろう。
熱を帯びた気が集まってきています。
いよいよだな。行くぞ。アルリベレーションオーラ。
かっこよく死ぬよりかっこ悪くてもいいから逃げて生き延びてほしいんです。次も戦い抜くために全軍前進。
私は直文様の盾として直文様を守るために来たのです。それが私の戦う意味です。
And what we're seeing here is the rise of the second guardian beast, the Phoenix. Now, here's the thing you got to understand about these guardian beasts. Basically, the reason they're there is to protect against these massive destructive forces called the waves. It's the same reason why the cardinal heroes are there. The sword, the spear, the bow, and the shield. But here's where the difference lies. In order to protect the world, the guardian beasts will absorb 2/3 of the world's souls, whereas the cardinal heroes will not do that. So that's why Naofumi and the rest of the cardinal heroes are trying to stop the rise of these guardian beasts. It's why they had to stop the tortoise and why they have to stop the phoenix. Because if they don't, these creatures are going to rampage across the world and they're going to absorb the souls of 2/3 of the world. They're kind of like a final line of defense if the guardian heroes fail. If the cardinal heroes fail or refuse to fight against the waves, they're kind of like a final line of defense when all else is lost. But Naofumi and the rest of them won't allow that. They've grown to love this world. They've grown to be accepted in this world. And they don't want to see 2/3 of it laid waste. So that's why they fought against the guardian tortoise. And that's why they're going to fight against the guardian phoenix. This is what we're seeing here, is the rising of the phoenix.
頑張りましょう。
ああ。
And there you have that we're going to have it come in 2027. And it says here, rise against cruel despair. So I'm kind of wondering if that's going to be the theme of season 5, where it's going to be to fight against the cruelness of despair and loss and all that. So this was the first trailer for Rise of the Shield Hero season 5. And I have to say it's a pretty decent trailer. And the idea of fighting against despair amongst not only the waves, but these guardian beasts seems really interesting to me. I mean, we already saw the legendary heroes, the guardian heroes, the cardinal heroes go up against the turtle. And we know there's 4 beasts. Now it's time for them to go up against the phoenix. And by the look of things, and I've not read the manga, and I know there's a manga to this. I've not read it, but from the looks of things, it seems like each one of these guardian beasts is going to be connected to another element. The tortoise or the turtle was linked to earth. This one seems to be linked to fire. So that leaves water and air. Okay. So that's where we're going with that, I think, is that each one of these guardian beasts is linked to another element. But like I said, there is a manga to it. I've not read the manga. I've been watching the anime. It's a pretty decent anime. It started out, just bonkers with that accusation against the shield hero. And then eventually he was cleared, and then he had to protect the world from the first guardian beast, which was the turtle, and now he's got to protect it against the second one, which is the phoenix. But it looks to be a great anime. It's coming out in 2027. I'm hoping it's early 2027, not mid to late 2027. But whenever it does come out, I'm probably going to end up watching it.
Now moving on, let's move on to this episode's video game segment. So, let's see what news dropped in the past 2 weeks in the world of video games.
So, let's transition from our anime news segment into our gaming news segment. And there's really only one story to talk about. One story that has stirred up a fandom, not just on PlayStation, but on Steam, Epic, Xbox, Nintendo, across the board. What you're looking at here is the PlayStation blog. And as you can see here, they are ending physical discs beginning in January of 2028. And we know that if they're going to do it, and if they're successful in doing it, Xbox will do it, Nintendo will do it, they'll all do it. PC will do it, the whole bunch of them will do this. And it won't stop with games. It'll be with movies, and it'll be with TV shows, anime, even freaking music will probably end up like this. Where no more discs. Okay. But let's take a look at this. And, I'm going to have some responses to it. But this is the blog talking about it. And it says here, in response to shifting trends and consumer preference, new games will be released on the PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital formats only. Going down here, it says, as consumer preferences and the broader entertainment industry continue to shift away from physical discs to digital, and I will say something about that here in a minute, physical game disc production for all new games releasing on PlayStation consoles will be discontinued starting January 2028. Now, I realize that is over a year and a half away, okay? I know this is still 2026. We got all of this year, 2027, and the first month of 2028 for this to happen, okay? I realize that. It goes on and says, following this date, new games will be available on PlayStation Store and at retailer in digital formats only. What that means is that if you go to GameStop, Walmart, Amazon, wherever, instead of going up there and buying a disc and expecting to come home with a disc that you could put on your shelf and collect and trade and all that stuff, you'll just get a digital code that will require you to download the game, okay? And it says, this transition has no impact on games that are already released or will be releasing prior to the January 2028 in this format. So they're saying this will have no impact on games, but developers looking at this will see this and start just releasing games on digital only. Okay. It says this is a natural direction for Sony Interactive Entertainment to adapt to consumer trends as the digital preference for digital media significantly outpaces physical discs. I have no problem with that statement. Okay, I'm not sitting here saying that digital media is not outpacing physical discs. And this is from someone who has bought both physical media and digital media. Okay, I'm not sitting here saying that one single bit. It's just that I prefer the choice. Going on, it says, this transition will enable us to align more closely with how most of our community prefers to access and play games today. We'll continue to prioritize our resources to drive innovation in how players can access games and provide choices as to where players prefer to purchase new games, whether that's at retailers or PlayStation Store. And we'll be talking about that statement right there here in a little bit. It says, we remain committed to delivering a world-class game experience to our fans, and we thank you for your continued support. All right. Before I get into all the other nuts and bolts of this issue, I want to respond to this blog. I feel the need to respond to this blog, okay? So, up here at the top, it says, as consumer preferences and the broader entertainment industry continue to shift away from physical discs to digital, physical game disc production for all new games released on PlayStation consoles will be discontinued starting January 2028. So, starting off with this PlayStation blog, it says right here that consumer preferences and the broader entertainment industry continue to shift away from physical discs to digital. I'm not sitting here saying that ain't happening, but it's being pushed on us. And it has been pushed on us for the past 2 console generations. Starting with the PS3 into the PS4, and now it's coming to a head in the PS5. Okay? That's what's been going on. It's been pushed on us. This is not some natural progression of consumer demand where consumers choose digital over physical. Okay? This has been pushed on us for 2 console generations now, where you have some games that people want to buy, but there is no way to get them on a disc. Another thing about digital is if you buy something digitally, okay, you don't own it. You own the license to it. What that means is that when I buy a physical copy of a game, I own that game. Okay? I can put that game into my system, play it, take it out, remove it, and trade it with another guy. It's my game. Okay? It's mine. With digital, you don't own the game. You don't own the movie, the TV show, whatever it is you bought. You own the license to access that information. Okay? And how many times have we seen where PlayStation or Xbox or Amazon either remove certain titles or lost the rights to those titles, and those titles had to be removed from people's libraries without any recourse, without any way to download them to a external cloud server, or to download them and keep them on a USB stick. Okay? How many times have we seen those stories? Okay? So this right here, this is not about what they said here about preferences, shift away from physical discs to digital. This is not about preferences. This is about you guys pushing on us a digital economy because you don't want us to own what we pay $70 for. You don't want us to be able to trade our games with friends, and likewise. You want to own what we pay $70, probably $80 for, and you want to continue on it and to continue to control it however you see fit. And if something happens, you lose the rights to said game, said property, whatever. Well, tough. This ain't about consumer preferences. This is about complete control over stuff that we buy for $70. Okay? Now, continuing on, it says right here, this transition has no impact on games that already released or will be releasing prior to January 2028 in disc format. Okay. While they may not have any effect on games coming out prior to January 2028, you know the developers are going to do anything they can to cut any penny they can. And what they're going to start doing is offering digital-only formats. They're not going to be going to discs before January 2028. So while technically they still can go to a disc format before January 2028, you and I both know that these developers are going to be looking at ways to get every dime out of us they can, and probably starting in the middle of 2027, I would say July of 2027, you'll see less and less disc format games coming out for the PlayStation. Okay? So while the official end date for disc format is January 2028, I would expect to see that transition to a digital all economy happen before then. By at least July of 2027 for it to happen then. Now, the final thing I want to talk about in this blog post happens down here at the bottom. And it says, we'll continue to prioritize our resources to drive innovation in how players can access games and provide choices as to where players prefer to purchase new games whether that's at retailers or PlayStation Store. That right there tells me they're already considering making it so the only place you can get a PlayStation game is on the PlayStation Store. That they are planning on cutting out Amazon, Walmart, GameStop, Game Exchange, all these game retailers. They're going to cut these guys out. And it's probably going to be announced next year. I would not be surprised if they announced it next year. Okay? Instead of sending out these digital codes to these retailers, they could just sit there and set the price on the PlayStation Store and force people to go to the PlayStation Store, even if they want to go to their GameStop. And that's going to cost hundreds of jobs in the retailer industry. And I already think that retailers like GameStop and Amazon are preparing for that. Okay? That they're preparing for that in some way, shape, or form. Now, there could be a possibility where PlayStation gives GameStop the rights to continue doing that, and they'll have like GameStop editions. But still, when you go up to a GameStop store, instead of getting the CD, you'll get a digital download code. And my theory and my thinking is that instead of having you to go up to GameStop and get the download code, they're just going to cut out the middleman and sit there and say, hey, just go to the PlayStation Store. Put your credit card on the PlayStation Store. Put your gift card on the PlayStation Store. And just download it directly from us. No hassle, no wasting gas, none of that. So yeah, I fully believe that if GameStop, Game Exchange, Amazon, if they haven't already started preparing for PlayStation to cut them out of selling PlayStation games, they will be shortly. And I think that it is coming. Where PlayStation, and I would not be surprised if it happened next year, where PlayStation basically says the only place you're going to be able to get a PlayStation game is on the PlayStation Store. Now, let's just be honest with ourselves here, okay? Let's just be full on honest with ourselves. PlayStation may be the first ones out of the gate to fully do this, but they won't be the last. And it won't just be games that this affects. Okay? I guarantee you Xbox is watching this, Nintendo is watching this, Steam is watching this, probably Epic is watching this, Amazon, all the sites where you can buy movies, they're watching this. Okay? And they're seeing what happens. But they're also looking at the money that could be made. Okay? And I really do think that's another thing that's driving this whole idea. Is control and greed. They want to own the properties they sell to us. And finally, greed. Okay? Just the intense need to make more money out of these properties. Okay? And I fully think that Xbox, Nintendo, Steam, Epic, Amazon, even the movie sites that sell you movies digitally are looking at this. And they're probably waiting to see how bad and how good the fan response will be. Okay? So don't just think this is going to be relegated to PlayStation. Because I guarantee you it ain't. Okay? This is just the first step in all of these companies doing this. And eventually, it's going to come to a point where you go up to Walmart to buy a movie. Okay, a new movie. And instead of getting a Blu-ray or a DVD, you'll just get a digital download code. You won't get the CD you want. You won't get the DVD you want. You'll just get a digital download code that says go to this site and it'll download it to your library on that site. And you'll have to have 30 or 40 different accounts in order to watch the movies and TV shows that you want. So while right now this is just PlayStation, that ain't going to last. Because every streaming service that sells movies, TV shows, books, music, and the other consoles like Xbox and Nintendo, they're watching this. And if PlayStation gets away with this, no doubt in my mind will they be next. So let me say this. This is going to be the end of what we view console gaming as now. Okay? And if you're wondering why I would say that, it's simple. First off, by going to an all-digital economy, you don't own the stuff that you buy. Okay? And we've seen it a number of times where old games are removed to make way for new games. We've seen it a number of times. Eventually, people are going to get tired of spending $70 on a game only for a couple of years down the road for it to be completely removed from their libraries with no way for them to save it onto an external hard drive or an external digital drive or anything like that. Okay? And it's going to be the same way with movies and TV and music, books, anything that goes along with this. Okay? You don't have or feel an ownership of the product you're buying. The question comes up, why am I buying this product? Why am I spending $70 on what is essentially a long-term rental? Because we've seen it a number of times where games have been removed to make way for newer games. Okay? And even though there are still people who still play these games, there's no recourse for them to download them to their hard drives, download them to their consoles. And what's worse, because it is a digital-only economy, if you have somehow left it on your system, then when you go to log in, because you got to have access to the internet to log in, and because there has to be something on the other side that allows you to play this game, the game's practically worthless. There's nothing to do. And on top of that, one of the things that a lot of people did was they would take games they were done with and they would resell them for money to buy the next big game. That goes out the window. And since we're talking about prices, look at PlayStation prices versus GameStop or Amazon prices. It takes longer for games to go down in price on the PlayStation Store than it does on GameStop or on Amazon. So that means that for longer, I'm going to have to pay $50, $60 for a game that's maybe a year old. Whereas if I went to GameStop and Amazon, I could get the same game $20, $30. So that means for longer, it's going to cost me more to buy a game that's a year old. Whereas before, when I had the choice of disc versus digital, I could wait a couple of months and buy it and get it for maybe $30. This really is going to hurt the consumer a lot in the pocketbook. And really, it's going to probably pull up a question in a lot of people's minds of, why am I buying only the license to this product? Why can't I have the product itself? Why do I have to go through all these hoops to buy something I want to play? Is it worth it to do that? Only for, in a couple of years, for it to be stripped from the service. When people start asking that question, you're going to really see a gaming crash we have not seen before. Right now, I think we're in the midst of a gaming crash, okay? But we haven't even hit the tip of the iceberg. Because when people don't feel an ownership to the properties they're buying, when they don't have anything that they feel like they own, where all they got is a license that can be taken away at any moment, then for all intents and purposes, they're going to stop buying games. We're already seeing a movement called downgrading, where people are going back to Blu-rays and DVDs to buy their entertainment because they are tired of just buying the license to the entertainment on Amazon or PlayStation or whatnot. So they're going back to buying Blu-rays and DVDs, going back to buying music CDs. And they were even going back to buying gaming CDs before this happened. This is the beginning of a major gaming crash. Okay, a major one. This is just the tip of the iceberg. If the other companies do this, like Nintendo and Xbox, then I tell you right now, it's going to be bad. You're going to see people start asking that fundamental question. Why am I only buying a license for something when I should be buying the actual product? And maybe they'll keep like the younger generation who basically grew up in this choice economy of physical versus digital and chose digital. But the majority of people who know that you don't own the product that you buy, who did not grow up in this economy, who watched it come to life, who chose physical over digital whenever they could, they're going to walk away. And there is no telling whether or not you're ever going to get them back. In closing, I want to say this. This whole idea that this is a natural progression of consumer wants and needs is a bunch of baloney. This has been building for years now. Okay? Probably for the last 2 console generations. And I'm specifically speaking about the PS3 and the PS4. Okay? But, yeah. This is happening. Okay? It's bad for the consumer. And I honestly believe that what we're seeing right here is a company's attempt to control their IP even after they sell us a copy of it. Before, you had choice. Okay? You had the choice of whether to buy a physical representation of this, IP that you could put in your game system and play. Or you could buy a digital license. Now that choice is being taken away from us. And there's going to be a lot of gamers who look at that and say, yo, I want that choice. I deserve that choice. I'm spending my $70 to buy your product. If I'm spending my $70 for your product, I deserve your product, not a freaking license to that product. And I think that maybe the younger generations who grew up in the digital economy will stick around, but I think even they will get tired of the nonsense of spending $70 for something, expecting to be able to play it forever, only to be able to play it for maybe a couple of years before it's removed from the service. Okay? And then you've got the older hardcore generations who have stuck by PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo for everything. Okay? For everything. And they see this and they're like, yo, I wanted that choice. I prefer physical copies. And now you're taking that choice away from me. So, you know what? Forget y'all. I don't need y'all anyway. That's $70 extra in my pocket I don't have to worry about spending on your programming or your games. All the other services, not just gaming services, but gaming, movie, books, TV, even anime, they're looking at this and they're seeing the backlash. They're seeing how much money PlayStation is going to make. And if PlayStation is allowed to get away with this, then they'll go and do it. And before too long, you won't be able to buy a disc. You won't even be able to buy a game on a disc. You won't even be able to buy a movie or TV game or anything that you used to watch on a disc. You'll have to buy a digital code. You'll have to have 50 different passwords for 50 different services because this service has an agreement with this production company and this service has an agreement with this production company, and that's the only place you can get that show or that movie. This is bad for the consumer. And I really hope that the government kind of steps in. Okay? I really hope someone in the government kind of steps in and says, hold on a minute. People deserve that choice. and really start asking questions about what this means for the consumer, not just in the gaming space, but in the movie space, TV, book, whatever. If you buy anything digitally, what this means for you. If you buy something in the physical format, what this means for you. I hate to say that because, usually when the government gets involved, it's not a good thing. But I think we're at that point where someone at the FTC, someone in Congress needs to look at this and say, hold on a minute. What does this mean for the consumer? What does this mean for the corporation? What does this mean for the developers and the people who make these IPs and make these games and make these movies? And really ask these hard questions and start getting us some answers on why we can't have the choice between physical and digital. Either way, if something doesn't change, if there isn't massive pushback, and I'm already seeing massive pushback. I've seen petitions pop up and everything. But if there isn't a massive pushback that makes these shareholders go, hold on a minute, then I guarantee you other services will do this. And before too long, it will all be an all-digital economy. And the only movies you'll be able to get on discs will be the older ones. And really, that's what will happen. We'll go back to watching some of the older stuff that is actually good versus this digital stuff that we have to jump through hoops for to get.
Now it is time to make a special announcement concerning this channel.
So, ladies and gentlemen, before I close out this episode of the Geek Report, I do want to kind of make a little bit of a special announcement. So, I've thought about this long and hard. I've really given this a lot of thought about whether or not to do this or not. And after much thinking and really just looking at the past Geek Reports, I feel that I need to take a break. Just a month-long break just to kind of get myself all situated, get myself clear-headed, really look over what's successful on my channel, what ain't doing well, and basically tweak a few things concerning my channel. For the month of August, I will not be uploading any episodes of the Geek Report. Now, that does not mean I'm not coming back, okay? Right now, the next Geek Report after this one will be on the 27th. That will be my final Geek Report before my break in August. When September rolls around, I will be back, okay? But I do need to kind of take a break for a little bit. Really look over my channel. Really see what I can improve on my channel and what I cannot improve on my channel. What needs to be removed. And really get caught up on some book reviews. Get caught up on some special commentaries. Trying to get caught up on a few things that I've been wanting to do for a while but haven't been able to do. After this episode of the Geek Report, we'll have another one on the 27th. That will be my final Geek Report before my break in August. I will return in September. I will do a special episode of the Geek Report so that way, whatever news dropped in August that caught my eye, I will talk about in September. And when I come back in September, it'll be with a clear mind, a focus on where I want to go with this channel, and also maybe a little bit of a rejuvenation. After this episode of the Geek Report, there will be one more that happens on the 27th, and that will come on I should say the 28th. I keep on saying the 27th. But the 28th of July, and then I will go on my break for the month of August, and then I'll be back in September, okay? So, this is not going to be a dead channel. I will return. I'm just going to take a little bit of a break to kind of rejuvenate myself, find out where I want to go with my channel, see what needs to be changed and what doesn't need to be changed, and really make this channel a whole lot better for not only me, but for y'all as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was your Geek Report for the weeks of June the 29th through July 13th of 2026. To kind of recap what we all talked about, we jumped straight into our anime news segment. And we first talked about the new Star Wars anime series, The Ninth Jedi. I looked over the trailer, gave you some of my own thoughts and opinions about this and what this could mean for Star Wars anime going forward. And then we also looked at the new trailer for Rising of the Shield Hero Season 5. We took a look at this first trailer for Season 5, and I gave you some of my overall thoughts and opinions on it. And then we talked about what happened in the gaming news area. And that is that PlayStation is ending physical discs in January of 2028. I talked about what this means for gaming and why this is such a bad idea overall. And finally, I made a special announcement concerning the Geek Report. Something that's going to affect the channel for at least a month that I felt needed to be talked about. But that was your Geek Report for the weeks of June the 29th through July 13th of 2026. I hope you guys are doing good. I hope you guys are staying well and staying healthy. Check out some of my other video sites as well as my social media at the end of this video. And I will see you guys in the next video and in the next stream. Laters.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this episode of the Geek Report. I hope you enjoyed it. If you got a moment, please check out my other video sites as well as my social media and give them a like and follow. I will see you all in the next video and the next stream. Laters.